DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Inside to Stevenson, up against Kaminsky, fucking good in the ball!
Santel, all the way to the basket, foul, lays it in for
2! Hello there, high school basketball fans. Welcome to the Upstate Hoops podcast here on Monday, January 13th, 2025. I'm Jim Sinicropi along with Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here in the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. Got a great show ahead. There were some really big games this week. Some good games coming up next week. New power rankings. You know the drill. Straight ahead here on Upstate Hoops. The Upstate Hoops podcast and all of our coverage of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball is brought to you thanks to the support of Little John and Barbie Orthodontics. Check out Dr. Rod and Dr. Liz online at littlejohnortho.com. Cicino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. Order online at cicinos.com. And DeSanto Propane since 1937. The difference has been DeSanto Propane. Well, welcome back to the studios, fellas. It was a pretty big week, and I think maybe start out talking about Cam Blankenberg becoming Wayne's all-time leading scorer in the third quarter against Newark. He surpassed his brother Logan's mark of 1,206 points, and the Eagles remained undefeated at 9-0 and would also go to 10-0 before the week was over. They defeated Newark on Tuesday night 71-54. Newark really reeling, Wayne rolling. And, the other thing about this Wayne team before we get into Cam Blankenberg is, Aiden Twist had 23 points in that win, 5 3-pointers. Richard Miles had 4 3-pointers, 16 points in that game. So Blankenberg had 24, but, scoring coming from multiple places. Wayne's going to be a tough team to beat, obviously, throughout the remainder of the regular season, and then, be favorites probably in sectionals Class A.
Yeah, first, obviously, congratulations, right? Cam's pretty much, outside of a couple checkpoints now, I'd say on the personal side, has hit pretty much everything you can get in a high school career.
He's a junior.
Yeah.
So, see you later, brother Logan.
Yeah.
He's going to go way past him.
Yeah, and, now it's kind of turned into, kind of the Section 5 historic numbers are next on that personal checklist, so that's going to be pretty fun to see. I know, Kyle, me and you were kind of talking last week off air a little bit about how, in theory, he'd have to maybe pick up the scoring a hair per game this year, but 2,000 could be on the table for this year, hypothetically, for him.
This year or career?
For the career.
Career, yeah.
Hypothetically, it's there. More than likely it would happen next year, but hypothetically, it's on the table. It could happen this year.
Yeah, he's 266 points away from 1,500, but he's averaging 28 a game. Over 8 games. So say, he has another 8 games or so. There's about the 250. So he could hit the 1,500 mark. But what's most impressive about Wayne for me too is they're not only winning games, they're winning in blowout fashion. 8 of their 10 wins have been by double digits. And, Newark, they haven't been playing very well this year. A lot of question marks with them. But the fact that no matter if it's Finger Lakes East opponent or not, they're blowing out every team they face, nearly.
And even some of the great Wayne teams of the last 10 years that went on to win sectionals, they didn't dominate the regulars. They won, they won the league, but they didn't win every game in blowout fashion like they're doing here. Man, one of their closest games was actually against Minders, which is kind of odd, but it's pretty much been a walk in the park for Wayne, and that includes some of the out-of-area teams that they played, so far this year.
I mean, they've handled pretty much everything as, you guys have mentioned. And, no, not to say it's lost in all this, right? But the fact of the matter is, like, this was a state finalist team last year. And it's hard to not feel like they could at least make it that point again in some way, shape, or form, obviously. So
Yeah, I think they're better team this year than last year. I mean, they had some losses last year. I really liked the Strowski kid who graduated, brought a lot to the team. But again, when you got a guy that's closing in on 1,500 points for his career as a junior, but then you have other players on your team that are also contributing 20 points a game. A lot of offense, and obviously well coached, good defensively. But they won games without Cam Blankenberg this year when Cam missed the first game or two. So they're not just a one-man team, that's for sure. And like we said, probably sectional champs. When we get into it, we're going to talk about some stuff on the girls' side too, including a 1,000-point score in Palmac this week. But let's look at the full week of boys basketball in review here. The first full week of 2025. Marcus Whitman with a nice win, our loss to Canasteo Greenwood. Or wait a second, they won 62-54. They lost earlier in the season to Canasteo Greenwood, so they split. Brody Royston with 23 points there. Honeoye is quietly putting together a good start to their season. They improved to 5-1 with an 83-57 win over Genesee Valley Belfast, led by 29 points from Owen Cuba. And then big games on Wednesday night this week. You had Minders traveling to Waterloo. It was a boys-girls doubleheader, swept by Waterloo. They beat the boys 58-55. With about 9.5 seconds left, Justin Knowlton made 1 or 2 free throws for the Tigers, giving the Blue Devils one last chance to tie it with a 3. Griffin Hillmeyer's three-pointer bounced off the front of the rim. And Waterloo with a big win. 29 points for Knowlton, 9 3-pointers. Not the record, but maybe the school record. Could be the school record.
I would imagine if it's not, it's got to be close.
And for Minders, it was Anthony Luffman with 15 and Jack Brady with 14. And then Minders would go on to host Newark on Friday night, and the Reds were able to break out of their slump with a 68-62 win. Game was tied at 53 with 3:35 remaining in regulation. Then the Reds went on a 15-9 run. So a couple of wins slipping through the fingers of Minders and really kind of setting them back after all the progress they made in the past couple weeks. Janor Allen with 21 points, Terrell Jenkins with 20 for the Reds. Griffin Hillmeyer had 24 for Minders. And then one of the games we were really looking forward to on Wednesday night, East Rochester and Lions, and it didn't disappoint. Lions did come away with a 55-48 win. It was the first loss for East Rochester on the season. They had won 7 straight, all by double digits. The Lions now 4 straight wins after that 3-game losing streak in December. Elijah Tanner had 18 for ER. Jameer Johnson had 20, and Stephen Lebrecht had 15 for Lions. And we'll talk about that one in a second. Let me just go through some more of the results. Gananda lost to Red Creek 60-53. Jerry Mosquieda had 16 points. Joseph Decker 15 for Red Creek as they improved to 6-2. Maybe a mild upset there. And then we got to talk about the South Seneca Falcons improving to 10-0 with a 56-36 win over Bloomfield, quietly amassing 10 wins to start the season. Along with Wayne, the only undefeated teams in the Wayne Finger Lakes, I think on the boys or girls side. Kenny Halsey, 14 points. Logan Laverack with 12. Taj Amasano with 10. Kyan Miller-Hopkins with 10. And the Falcons, not the Lady Falcons, but the boys team, 10-0.
I don't know if I want to give too much of. Well, look, they're making enough waves for me that I have to keep putting them higher into these power rankings the way I put them, anyway. And look, it's interesting for a team with 7 players on the roster now, as opposed to 6 to start the year.
That helps.
I mean, it's crazy that they're now at this point double digit 10-0. I don't know who's going to necessarily stop them. They got a couple good games this week coming up too for the Falcons. So, but job well done, Coach Clemenson down in Ovid, kind of leading this group along. And not the first time we've seen them in the past couple of years kind of poke their heads up and make some noise down at the south end of Seneca County.
Yeah, and they're 6-0 in non-league play, and they've also won 8 of their 10 by double digits. So they're also winning big as well, and I definitely think that's a team to keep an eye on.
And it's cold down there in Ovid, in January. So I know that's a community that loves basketball. Had some historically great teams on the boys and girls side. More recently, the girls, heading multiple times to Hudson Valley for the state tournament. So good to see for sure. And also great place to watch basketball there in the Jack Guinan gymnasium. Friday night, another rivalry game for Waterloo. This time it was Geneva coming to Waterloo. They escaped with a 52-42 win. Panthers led by 6 at halftime, outscored the Tigers 23-19 in the second half. Paul, you and Nate Sharman were there courtside for Finger Lakes 1, and your thoughts on that game. Waterloo gets a big win against Minders. Then the following 2 days later, lose to Geneva.
Well, it was first and foremost a great game. It was, again, a pretty good defensive battle overall. Was interested to see kind of Geneva, right? We saw them against Wayne in person. Kind of was intrigued to see how they would go up against another top team in the Finger Lakes East, and certainly rose to the occasion. Caden Larson's a kid who I think is getting slightly overlooked overall, maybe in terms of individual accolades. Really great two-way player. And he said himself he takes a lot of pride in that in practice, and then getting going in game and stuff like that. On the Waterloo side of things, they just have to take this a little bump in the road and keep going. I still think that's a pretty good team that they got at worst over there. Caraballo really stepped up throughout the game to kind of make some noise and lead some headway there. And I'm kind of intrigued. And I know this is something that you can't, in theory, do the whole game. I'd be really intrigued to see what Waterloo would be like in doing that 2-on-2 full court zone that they did there for a while, and because that caused Geneva a little bit of headache, and it's kind of the reason I'd say Waterloo still had a chance there at the end when they started doing, the foul game and stuff like that at the end.
Yeah, it's really balanced in the East outside of Wayne, and yeah, so if you're like Miners, you drop a couple games that you're in late in the same week, man, it's tough to bounce back from. And you've seen teams have stretches like Geneva looked a little down for a second, and now they're starting to play better. But, yeah, I mean, there's going to be so many tight games that can only prepare these teams for sectionals as we get closer to February here. A couple more boys results to round out the week. Gananda boys bounced back with a win over Clyde Savannah 61-48. And also on Saturday, a pretty interesting game. East Rochester and Bloomfield matched up, and ER bounced back from the loss to Lions, proved to 8-1 with a 77-43 win over Bloomfield. 23 points for Elijah Tanner and 19 for Ray Allen. But got to mention a couple other teams flying under the radar. So on Monday, Red Jacket with an 88-28 win over Campbell Savona to improve to 5-1 at the time on Monday. Their best start to a season since 2019. Timmy Brown, 32 points. Truman Hill with 19. And I believe that may have been the team that ended up going to the finals against Marcus Whitman in 2019, maybe. Anyways, good start to the season there. But then on Thursday, of course, things go big time south as Honeoye defeated Red Jacket 72-34, handing Red Jacket their second loss. Landon Washburn with 21 points, Owen Cuba with 12 there, and Honeoye is 6-1. So a lot of teams in the West off to a great start to the season, including Red Jacket, despite that pretty much a blowout loss to Honeoye. But yeah, a lot of I don't want to say average. I just want to say a lot of above average teams in all three leagues. Some programs that were a little bit down that now maybe have their eyes on making sectional runs. So while it's outside of Wayne, I don't know if we have a great team. Maybe in their class, Lions or Whitman might be close to be considering a potentially great team that, a team that'll get their names up on the gym walls come February, maybe make a run beyond. But certainly very balanced and a lot of contenders, a lot of teams that can take it from here and into sectionals in February by showing some improvement over the coming weeks. I mean, Kyle, you see it every night. You can't handicap these games because there just seems to be a lot of volatility in the middle of the league standings, especially.
Yeah, the Newark boys beating Minders. Never would have saw it. Their first win in 6 games. 2 of their 4 wins have come against Penn Yan and Midlakes, who are combined 3-19. So, yeah, it's just you never know what's going to happen any given night. Like Red Jacket, one night they look like they might be a pretty surprising team, and the next night they go and get blown out by Honeoye.
Yeah.
So it's just tough, but I think it's by far the most interesting year for me in terms of covering every night, because you just never know what surprise comes with it. It's not just like 2 or 3 teams and that's it. It's like the leagues are wide open.
Right. Yeah. And that's when you're talking about that Minders Newark game. That was a chance for Minders to get back over the hill and continue their season, on an upswing. And then they just take a giant step back with that loss. And that was a game that they were in along with Waterloo. So there's 2 games, Minders coming off 4 straight wins. And then they just dropped 2 in a row in the same week in games that they probably could have won if maybe they executed a little bit better down the stretch. And certainly if they made more free throws.
Yeah, and they also had a 3-game losing streak, I think, earlier. Maybe it was a 2. But, yeah, up and down with Minders so far. That's not what you want to see. And their league record is as bad as Midlakes now.
Right.
So their league record has taken a hit. And believe it or not, Newark has a better league record than they do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Newark's got to start winning games here. And so does Minders.
Yeah. Yeah, they both kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball here heading into Martin Luther King weekend next weekend. Now let's kick it over and take a look at the girls' side of things over the past week. And we started out on Monday with York defeating Bloomfield. Now, York 9-1, of course, not in the Wayne Finger Lakes, but Bloomfield certainly is, and Bloomfield, a team we had high hopes for on the girls' side. The loss snapped a 5-game winning streak. 2 of their 3 losses this season have come against York. Kayla McCombs had 22 points for Bloomfield there, but they did bounce back after a tough loss with a 71-15 win against East Rochester. Kayla McCombs had 20 points in that one as well. This Bloomfield girls team is pretty good, but I think that York team might be a special team, as well, especially in a smaller class heading into sectionals. They'll definitely play a factor. Wednesday night, Bloomfield again with a win over Penn Yan, again playing in the Finger Lakes East this year. Penn Yan, a league opponent, and they won by 5. Penn Yan's had some tough losses. They dropped to 4-6 with that loss. As Bloomfield nipped them, Kayla McComb, 20 points again. Lily Bauman with 15 points. Ashlyn Wright with 15 points. And Penn Yan was led by Corinne Barden with 15. Something I want to point out, too, Williamson Marion girls really reviving that program. Pretty interesting to see. They got a big win on Thursday night, 73-59 over a good Clyde Savannah girls team in a league matchup. But that was only before losing by 18 or 55-32 to, what is that, 23 points? Yep. To East Rochester on Tuesday night. So, again, encouraging win beating Clyde, but just really against what's been definitely a below-average East Rochester team to get blown out like that. Also interesting from that Tuesday night game, Elle Alexander for Williamson Marion scored 30 points, 30 of the team's 32. Not sure who got the other 2, but they should have probably passed it up and given it back to Elle Alexander. Anaya Eldridge with 26 points in that one as East Rochester got a much-needed win. Friday night, Marcus Whitman with a convincing win over South Seneca, 67-26, behind 16 points from Maddie Daggett. 8-1 now for Liz Royston's Lady Wildcats. And then the big news of the week, Friday night, Taryn Goodness, 1,000 points on the road at Wayne in a win against Wayne. Congratulations, Taryn. On 1,000 points, you join your brothers. Both brothers, I believe, are 1,000 point. Both Goodness brothers, Paul and Ian.
Feels like they are.
Definitely
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah.
Not sure about Ian, but I would assume so.
If not, the Thanksgiving dinners are going to be tough for old Ian when he's got his other siblings part.
Is this the part where I talk about Cheryl Miller and Reggie Miller and
Yeah, the Goodness families, very similar. I'm sure Taryn got better playing against those two.
Yeah.
Not only was she younger, but that's and I've seen her play. She's tough. She's a tough ball player. So congratulations, Taryn Goodness, 1,000 points. Yeah, so not a ton of action on the girls' side of consequence. The Newark girls kind of got back on track with a couple wins this week. Anything, comments on the girls' side of things before we kick it over to the power rankings?
I think the Wayne County, again, is going to be really interesting. I know I've probably banged that drum out how many times this year, but I mean, peak example of it, you bring up a team like Williamson Marion, who we kind of saw do a similar type thing last year, kind of hover at this like at or right above 500 mark. At worst, a team that you probably wouldn't want to play in that sense. Yeah, definitely a weird week for them in the sense of, this is a East Rochester team who I still personally have a little bit of regard for, but definitely not the year that they probably anticipated themselves having. Losing, but then turning around and then beating a Clyde Savannah team that's been on the upswing this year. I mean, it's I don't know. It will be interesting to kind of see how things fully shake out in Wayne County on that side of things. Finger Lakes East, I think, just kind of gets a little bit more thrown into a de facto 2-horse race as the week went on, more than anything else.
And who's that?
Waterloo and Bloomfield, at least at this point anyway.
Bloomfield. So we thought Newark, Pelmac, Newark.
Oh, yeah, Palmac too. Kind of, the Palmac thing's interesting because they've been quiet about the year so far. And they're up there, but it's been a quiet kind of year for them, interestingly enough. But yeah, so right there, I get my own point proved
Red
wrong.
Creek girls beat Gananda this week. Is that correct, Kyle, or was that on the boys' side?
That was on the boys' side.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but, as you see, Bloomfield being in the East is kind of a little different.
Yeah.
For sure. But, yeah, they definitely can compete. And, Waterloo's a clear favorite moving forward. But if teams like Newark, yeah, especially, I think Newark's a really good team that just hasn't quite hit their peak yet. I think by the end of the year that they'll be tough out in sectionals.
And, not to maybe jump too far ahead too, but this week is pretty much the final week in terms of league play that you're seeing teams play each other for the first time. And then even towards the end of this week, you start getting back on the whip arounds for a couple of these teams.
Not much time
as well.
left in the season. What do we got? The 13th today.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I counted 36 days. 5 weeks from tomorrow, the season ends.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
then
quick.
a couple days off, and then sectional starts right away.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, it does go by fast. So these teams that need to show improvement got to start showing improvement soon here and kind of build that momentum heading into sectionals. So speaking of momentum, let's power right through into our power rankings for the week. And take a look at what we got. We'll start with the girls. No surprise there. Waterloo number 1. I'm assuming that was unanimous. And there's Pelmac right behind them at number 2. Lions girls looking strong. A lot of times it's tough to judge Lions against these better Finger Lakes East girls teams. This particular team, I think, could certainly hold its own if it did happen to be in the Finger Lakes East. Bloomfield girls tied for 4th with Newark. Dundee Bradford, we didn't mention them yet on the show, but they keep on rolling. Marcus Whitman girls, Gananda girls, Clyde Savannah at 9 now, and then a big tie at number 10 with East Rochester inching their way back in, Honeoye and South Seneca, and man, it does get tough down at the bottom, especially on the girls' side. South Seneca, I don't think that I had them in my vote, so
Neither did I.
So it must be Palmas like South.
I'm not. I was the Honeyway vote, so I'm not too sure. But
3 and 5 South Seneca. Oh, maybe it'll be. Oh, you know what? I had it. I might have had it backwards.
oh,
South Seneca boys, maybe, but yeah. So there you go. That's the girls. Let's take a look at the boys. Wayne number 1, Lions number 2. Now Lions, despite all their losses, number 2. have been playing better. Got the big win against East Rochester this week. Marcus Whitman all the way up to number 3. Kind of shocking, but that's what happens with Marcus Whitman. They're better than you think they are. They play together. They're experienced. It's a kind of like a cyclical thing, I think, for Waterloo or for Marcus Whitman, and they are on an up cycle right now. And I know Coach O'Connor has them focused on a sectional title. This team certainly has potential, and a lot of old younger brothers of guys off the team that did win a sectional title a few years ago. East Rochester boys still in the top 5 despite the loss to Lions. Geneva makes it way back up the charts to be the second highest Finger Lakes East team. Odd to see the second highest Finger Lakes East team not be higher, but that's the way the league has gone this year. And certainly that game between Geneva and Waterloo this past week is the reason why Geneva is ahead of Waterloo, who comes in at 6. South Seneca boys undefeated and at 7. I wonder who's on their schedule that might be a really good test. That if they were to win a game against a tougher team, a Finger Lakes East team, we might learn a lot. But right now at 10-0, they're 7. Newark behind South Seneca at number 8. They did get the win at Minders, but man, it's been a tough start to the season for Coach Couperis' Reds. And then another huge tie at the bottom, Dundee Bradford. Honeoye, the one-loss Honeoye Bulldogs.
Yep.
And then you got Minders in there, which I don't know, man. After those 2 losses this week, it's tough to see them even up there ranked. But and then Palmac boys also. So get a lot of value in the power rankings this week in terms of volume of teams in the top 10. For the boys, we had 12 teams or 13 teams in our top 10.
Yeah,
because of the ties.
I think it's pretty telling the fact that we just collectively don't know what to make of kind of the bottom 3 teams out of each one. But yeah, I mean, South Seneca's will be interesting because they have Dundee Bradford. They're going to Dundee Bradford this upcoming week. Mm-hmm. They host Red Jacket this week, another team that. For me, is kind of the first team personally outside looking in the power rankings for me. I'd say if anything, I guess I do have. I don't know if it's a gripe necessarily, but I don't know how Palmac's not a little bit higher for the boys.
Well, what happens if Minders play South Seneca? I would like to see that. They're very close. And you think Minders would be favorites?
So this is my issue I have right now when I go and I do my voting. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but, being a sports fan that I am, we just lived through the hypothetical thing with college football, and at the end of the day, I have to base it on, at this point, are you winning the games? Are you losing games?
Seneca's won 10 games, lost none.
You're winning. It's hard for me to ignore if you're just winning games outright at this point,
Yeah, Miners had chances to win at the end of games, so... Again, still time to turn things around, but that was a tough week for Minders. Surprised to see him still even make the top 10. Any comments on the boys' power rankings, Kyle? Lions number 2, Whitman number 3. Was that what it was? Yeah,
I keep switching them. In fact, I actually put Lions back to 3 this week because I liked Marcus Whitman's 2 wins, and it was a quality win. Canisteo Greenwood was the first one, where Lions struggled and let East Rochester come back. So the best part is we get to know this week. How good is Lions? Are they going to be able to handle
versus Whitman, right?
Yep, and Wayne.
That's huge.
Yep,
and Wayne. Yeah, that's great. That's what we like to see. Then we don't have to guess. And yeah, you mentioned East Rochester's first loss came to Lions. Lions jumped off to a big lead, and then ER outscored them the second, third, and fourth quarters.
Yeah, Lions had a scoring drought at times, just weren't playing their best basketball. So that's what I always wonder is how good is this Lions team? Is the youth going to catch up to them in a big game come maybe sectional time? Are they just not going to be that team that makes it as deep as they always seem to do?
I mean, I think I find it hard to see Lions winning games against top competition in sectionals if Jameer Johnson doesn't score 20 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the beauty of high school basketball. A lot of players can show personal improvement, and obviously together as a team can play better. A lot better from January 1st to Valentine's Day. You can see a lot of improvement. These kids are in the gym every day practicing. a lot of games, and your team can really come together and improve, and you can improve individually, in a short period of time as push towards the postseason. So
Very high in the Bloomfield girls as well.
yeah, we heard a lot of preseason hype about the Bloomfield girls. They obviously came to the Finger Lakes East because of that, wanted some challenges, and they've held their own. And again, there's just not dominant teams. Even Waterloo, probably closest thing to dominant, but they haven't dominated like Waterloo teams of the past 2 to 4 years have. But they keep winning, obviously.
Yeah, the Bloomfield girls are 7-3, and 2 of those losses are against the undefeated York team that you thought could make a deep run in sectionals. So that's why I don't understand why. In my opinion, I put them 2. I think they should be up more. And their other loss was against Pelmac, who is also a good team. So I think Bloomfield's being overlooked a little bit, and I think they're going to be maybe even better than Newark. Newark, for some reason, isn't what I thought they would be. 6-4. They're 4-2 in league play, where Bloomfield's 4-1.
Yeah, I would have expected that Newark team to maybe have 1-2 losses at the most so far, given the schedule they played, which hasn't been easy or anything. It's just that I thought that they were literally the best team in the Finger Lakes East heading into this year.
And the Minders girls, it's just hard to believe how bad.
Yeah, a little personnel challenge.
Still have talent.
New coach, give them a
2-6.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of crazy. Again, though, even a team like that is going to be in sectionals and is playing teams smaller than in the Finger Lakes East, and so hopefully they can find something. I mean, they do have some. Those I know a lot of those girls, and they're great athletes, and I think Chelsea Korzeniewski at point guard is great. Ailey Nigro, kind of like a swing 3-4. Yeah, hey, we'll see.
I got to take on the Lions girls quickly.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'm not as high as I think you guys are on them right now. I don't like that they've played 5 league games and only 2 non-league games, and the 1 non-league game they lost.
That's good.
And if
point.
you look at Red Creek, yeah, they're 5-3, but look, Sodus, they played 0-7. East Rochester's not what they are. North Rosewoke at 1-9. They're racking up these wins because of the bottom of the East, like the boys used to always dominate, is not good.
Yeah, no, that's what we got to see. I mean, they did play Clyde, right?
Yep.
They beat Clyde pretty handily.
Yep.
I think.
I think it was double digits.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of it goes off of what they did last year and what they returned. We haven't seen them play a true test, and whether that hurts them in a game in February in a sectional semifinal game against a really good team, having not had a lot of true tests in the regular season due to the league. I mean, Gananda, Red Creek are both pretty good. East Rochester wasn't as good as we thought they'd be so far. But, yeah, it's a good point. We'd love to see Lions, get a good win against another top team. So, with that being said, let's see who they play this week, or let's see who everybody plays this week. Start with the girls, since we're talking about them. Hey, there's a chance for the Minders Lady Devils to get back on track at North Rose-Wolcott. Red Creek in Wayne County, Tuesday night. Dundee Bradford's at Romulus, Marcus Whitman at HAC, so I'm not seeing a lot of good games. Newark girls, another tough one, having to play Rochester School in Eastridge. South Seneca Red Jacket, that'll be a good one. Moving on to Wednesday night, Lions at ER. Williamson Marion at Gananda. We talked about Williamson Marion reviving the program. If they get a win at Gananda, that's a big step in the right direction. Geneva girls got 2 wins last week. Congratulations to them. They might be able to get 3 when Wayne comes to town on Wednesday night. Minders, CG Finney, Rush Henrietta, Pelmac, Waterloo, Bloomfield, Wednesday night. I think that's the game of the week.
On the girls' side, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. On the girls' side, no doubt. Waterloo at Bloomfield. So Waterloo going to the Bomber Barn. I don't know if they've ever played there that I can remember in recent history. But it's a site of a lot of sectional semifinal games too down there in Bloomfield.
I don't think they've been there either, because the girls, for the most part, funnel up to Honeyway Falls Lima.
Yeah, the boys are usually having their sectionals there, so pretty good one to mark on the calendar for Wednesday night. Dundee Bradford at South Seneca on Thursday night. Honeyway Marcus Whitman, so some games in the West. And then Friday night, East Rochester at Clyde could be a good one. Lions at Red Creek could be a good one. tough place to travel to, Red Creek, the easternmost school in all of Section 5, the northeasternmost. Penn Yan at Minders. Penn Yan girls are playing pretty good basketball, so that'll be a tough one for Minders to get on track. And then Newark Pelmac, that's the another game of the week. So 2 big games in the Finger Lakes East girls this week. Newark Pelmac on Friday, Waterloo Bloomfield on Wednesday, and there you have it. As we take a look at the boys now, Whitman at Pelmac, that's a good one on Monday night. Clyde at Red Creek, ER at Gananda rivalry game. East Rochester good with only 1 loss. A good Gananda team too. Lions at Wayne Tuesday night. Man, that'll be a good one too. Look, let's just real quick talk about Lions at Wayne. Yeah. And we'll talk about at the same time maybe Whitman Lions on Friday night.
Yep.
These are 2 big games for Whitman. Obviously, our 2 big games for Lions at Wayne, and then at Whitman, both on the road.
Yep.
I'm gonna say that the line on the Wayne game is Wayne minus 16. I don't think it's gonna be close. I think Wayne's gonna handle them. Whitman Lions, because it's at Whitman, I'm gonna go Whitman minus. And Whitman's beat them, I think, 2 times in a row at Jim Tuck Court. A really good Lions team came down there, a sectional champ Lions team a couple years ago and lost. I'm going to say Whitman minus 3.5. So I hope Coach Schott isn't watching, Kyle. But I just think it's a good test for Lions. It'll be interesting to see. But right now, I think Wayne's going to roll at home against Lions, and I think that Whitman's going to win a good game, a good basketball game. And so, where would that put Lions after this week?
Yeah, they would go to 6-5 if they were to lose both. I'm not sure what to think about these games, and I'm definitely not throwing out predictions because those don't do well. But I think one of the games will be a blowout. I'm not sure which side it's going to be, but that's all I'll say as for my prediction. If you wanna go ahead, Paul.
Sicko and me will gladly take the plus 16 on Lions at the very least.
Well, we might have to have some action off camera.
I mean, at the very least, if you're going to give me double digits, I'm going to be a sicko and play that way. I mean, you want to talk about a couple really great games, and not to jump too far ahead, but me and Kyle will be down at Whitman on Friday night for that game.
On Finger Lakes 1.
We'll be broadcasting that one out. So looking forward to that. So for that one, I'll pull the Kirk Herbstreit card and just give some analysis. We're looking forward to that game. I would imagine it'll be Miles Prendergast against Jameer Johnson down in the block. That'd be the safe bet, I think.
Let's zone it up.
Yeah, I mean, but that's definitely the big, matchup in that game.
Yeah.
That I'd have to circle. Tomorrow night, that'll be interesting, right? Because who does Lions have that can probably run at speed with Cam Blankenberg? Maybe Stephen LeBrecq will kind of get that assignment type deal. So I'm really looking forward to.
I think Wayne can play either way. If Lions wants to run, Wayne will run. If Lions wants to slow it down, they'll be, clinical in their half court. There's nothing against Lions. Wayne's a bigger school, Class A. They're not a team that they have to beat in sectionals. I just think that this Wayne team is much better than the Lions. I think Wayne's the best boys team, no doubt, across all the leagues and classes. Whitman though I don't know if they're in the same class as Lions, but they are. Yep. So that's the one that's the true test.
Yeah.
And one that we could see reenacted on the court of the Blue Cross, in February for a sectional title. Both teams, sectional contenders for sure. So real interesting week for Lions. And kudos to athletic director Zach Young, head coach Dean Schott for scheduling these games. We used to knock on Lions' recent history because they had a cupcake schedule and we didn't feel like it did prepare them.
Speaking of not having cupcake schedule either, Whitman, not to jump too far ahead when we go back to the schedule, but they also host Geneva Wednesday.
Yeah.
And
that's not a league game. Whitman's not in the East. They're scheduling those.
They're Indy. Yeah. I mean, this is for Lions and Whitman, which is what makes Friday really interesting too. It's kind of their own version of Hell Week.
You may get
almost in a way.
Pelmac tonight. Doesn't Whitman play Pelmac?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Throw
It's
that
it's
schedule back
it's
up.
their own version of like Hell Week almost in
Yeah.
a way.
They have 3 games in 5 days.
Yeah.
All against tough competition.
Pelmac, Geneva, on the road to Pelmac, Geneva at home, and then Lions at home.
Yeah.
So at least 2 of them are home. Minders boys chance to bounce back Friday night at Penn Yan too. Minders really could use a couple of wins this week. What else are we missing here? The Honeyoy boys host Bloomfield on Friday night, and there's that South Seneca Dundee Bradford game. South Seneca at Dundee, Bradford putting their undefeated record on the line. Waterloo at Wayne. That's one we haven't talked about. Pelmac at Newark. Boy, what a night on Friday night for Wayne Finger Lakes basketball. And then Saturday we got some interesting out of league, in some case out of sectional matchups. So yeah, great week. Great week of basketball, especially for Whitman, Lions, Pelmac. Again, Minders really needs to bounce back from this past week. They play World of Inquiry tonight. That's going to be a tough one. So yeah, here we go.
Hey, one thing before we go, Kyle, we'll have to put you on the spot a little bit here and toss over to you, but the Honeyoy boys, correct, played a interesting non-league game out of state entirely over the weekend.
Oh, this weekend?
This past weekend, yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. So they went to Cleveland and they played at the Cavaliers arena and played Livonia and won by double digits. And it's the first annual, what are they calling it? The
Bulldog Battle or something?
Bulldog Battle.
Something like
In
that.
Cleveland?
Yeah, yesterday on a Sunday they played.
Huh.
And like I said, they beat Livonia by double digits, and that Landon Washburn had 26.
Well, on the Cavs home court.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
It
seem to
looked like-
remember a team that was supposed to go out there a few years ago.
I'm not too sure, but it looked like for them, they got to play on the city court as well for them at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Personal favorite arena for me, if I'm being totally honest. But yeah, it looked like you got to play on the new city edition court that the Cavs play on. So that's got to be one hell of an experience.
Yeah.
at-
And
at
that-
any
Good team
level.
building.
Yeah.
That win pushed them to 7-1, Honeyway.
So
That's pretty good.
Yeah, some teams to keep an eye on here this coming week. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing next week. Martin Luther King Day's on Monday, and I might be on the road. We may just release our power rankings next week. We may do a Tuesday show. Man, there would be a lot to talk about next week, wouldn't there, with this week ahead. So we'll figure it out. Check the front page of fingerlakes1.com for whatever we decide to do as far as that goes. And again, thanks for joining us here on the Upstate Hoops Podcast. Connect with us on Facebook, X, and TikTok. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our audio-only podcast is available most everywhere you enjoy your audio content. You can also find our show live, stream games, and local news, weather, and sports 24/7 on the free fingerlakes1.com app. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on the Upstate Hoops Podcast.